You're good, Steve?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's call the Pipestone City Council meeting for March 17th to order, please. Could I have a roll call?
Mayor Delaney,
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Thompson. Here. Councilmember Swanson.
Here.
And Councilmember Colbeck.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's all rise for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions, changes, or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed say no, and motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. The consent agenda contains the following items: March 3rd, 2025 regular meeting minutes, the payment of claims, listing of bills, and the February financial reports. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries. Community concerns. Deb, do we have anyone signed up for community concerns, or did we get any electronic community concerns?
No one has signed in and no electronic emails were received.
Okay, thank you. Next up is our presentation, and Jill Toring from ACE of Pipestone County, you're up first.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to start with the
There you go.
1 year and 5 year plan that the city council had in the paper. And I read that, and one of the key points was to increase volunteers in Pipestone County. So I kind of, it took me back a little bit, and I contacted Deb Nelson, and I said, I would like to partner with the city council, because in front of you, I've given you all an ACE brochure, and half of my job in Pipestone County is volunteer coordination. So like after 1 year of working here, on the back page, I had 25 stations, which is partners, for people to volunteer at. I had 178 volunteers sign up through ACE to volunteer throughout the county, and they provided 16,184 hours of volunteer time throughout the Pipestone County. This year I have 35 stations, 270 volunteers that provided 32,000 hours of volunteering. So what I would like to do is partner with the city council to help you meet your goals of increasing volunteers. And then what that would do is feed our pool of volunteer time and volunteers, because I would recruit what areas you need. One of the areas that Deb and I talked about is the flower pots along the highway. I have some master gardeners that are volunteers through the ACE program. So I think that this would be a win-win situation. I've given Deb the MOU, which is basically a memorandum of understanding that we would partner together. What that would mean for you guys is that anybody that volunteers on the city council would become an ACE volunteer, and anybody that volunteers with the city would become an ACE volunteer. And then I would help recruit volunteers for areas that you guys need. I've also given Deb the station sheet, which is a sheet where all volunteers sign in their hours. So after they volunteered, they would just report their hours to Deb or whoever keeps track of that. And then we would give you the numbers. So if you were to sign up for a grant and needed to know how many volunteers did how many hours on just the city projects, I can pull those stats within a day. Do you have any questions for me?
Great. It sounds like a great program and a good fit to work directly with you, Deb. We'd certainly like to partner with you. I think it's a great idea. Go ahead, Roger.
Would that help with, like a lot of our committees are short? I mean, would that help with volunteers, like some of the city committees, or is that?
Well, I was thinking of our Community Improvement Commission, and we do have some openings there. And part of their discussion recently was the flower boxes. And we used to have a lot of different businesses and private individuals that took care of those boxes. And some did a really good job and some didn't do a really good job. But, so we were looking at, do we need to remove some or do we want to keep some out there? The last thing you want is two nice flower boxes and then the third one is full of weeds. And so, yeah, it's just coordination to get people, because there's people out there that'll do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that would be one area that would work out quite well, I think.
We had talked about that, Jill and I had talked about that, if it could be a possibility that we could maybe fill some of those spots and they could use those hours. Usually one of the boards committees might meet for an hour or two and that would be their volunteer hours.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Jill. Appreciate the
Any more
opportunity.
questions?
Stay in touch with Deb.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Next up is Myron with the Casey Jones Trail event.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council members, and city staff. I'm representing the Casey Jones Trail, we're friends of the Casey Jones State Trail, which, by the way, his trailhead is right there by Mayor Dan's property.
Highway 23 and 75.
Highway 23 and 75. And if you can either take the trail or you can look at Dan's horses, one of the two. But anyway, moving on. Seriously, what we're having a bicycle event on May 17th. And what we're going to be starting out is in Moore Park. And then once the start time arrives, which should be about 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll travel around the Indian Lake Trail, going north out of Moore Park, around the Indian Lake Trail back to 2nd Street Northwest, and then across town to the trailhead, bicycling to Woodstock and back. And we're working with a couple of the restaurants along the way that have both adult beverages and youngster beverages to hopefully come up with some stops along the way where people can enjoy themselves and some of the facilities that we have in Pipestone. And so it's just merely a kind of a, hey, this is what's going to happen. It's really, we don't need a whole lot from the city or anything else, other than I'll need to call the receptionist to reserve more park. Other than that, that's about it. Then there's another point that I need to bring up is one, we don't have really good city representation, the city government representation on our Friends of the Casey Jones Trail right now. We used to be, thank you, Deb Nelson, for the number of years that you were on there and also acted as chairman, did a wonderful job to get us where we're at today. And so what I'm actually out recruiting is if one of the city council members would like to be on that Friends of the Casey Jones Trail, we do have opportunities for you. You don't have to attend in person. We do have hybrid meetings, and we meet the second Thursday of the month over noon hour. And so you could join us Zoom and be on that. The reason why I feel the cities need to be involved as we evolve more or get more and more trails put together, which will be my last point, is that if we start getting bicyclists to come through, and especially if they stay overnight, each bicyclist on average will spend about $400. So given there's opportunities here to help the economic vitality of Pipestone because of that. So then the final one that I want to bring up is when there's a stretch of about 3 miles, Deb, is that west of how many years have we owned that?
A lot.
A lot of years, over 30, I know that, yes. Okay, here's the announcement. We've found some money. They will, going to be starting the engineering on that section. And so once the engineering is complete, there's apparently going to be some monies available to actually pave that section, that 3 mile section, west out of Lake Wilson.
It's a little over, it's not quite 3 miles. There's a 3 mile gap.
Yeah.
But when you come straight out of, west of Lake Wilson, they got the money to pave that, so.
And then what we're recommending to DNR is to, which we talked about many times before, is using the highway right of way, which is another 3 miles to the county line road. And then we had a couple county commissioners at our last meeting, and they were open to possibly using the right of way of the county line road to go north, and it's about 1.5 miles, 3/4 to the 2 mile section that's coming out of Lake Wilson. So what I guess what I'm saying is within the next 10 years, which seems like a long time, it isn't. But you'll be able to get on your bicycle and ride all the way to Lake Wilson or vice versa, coming to Pipestone. Along with that, the Casey Jones, Friends of the Casey Jones Trail are also trying to facilitate working with MnDOT to use the highway right of way, Highway 75, to connect the Laverne loop to Pipestone. And which all of these are really long-term projects. Like they explained to me when I first came up with a couple of these ideas, these are not projects, they're careers. And so it's going to take a long time. But if you have, really look at it, it really makes a lot of sense to have that, because that would tie into the Casey Jones Trail. You would also be tying in to the state park for the national monument, eventually getting to Chautauqua State Park, which would be the halfway point to Redwood Falls. Eventually, that's where we want to be with this trail system. And you start talking those numbers, it really starts adding to the economic vitality of all the communities along that route. Kind of threw out a bunch of stuff here very quickly. It's more informational than anything, other than a request that if you could get one of the city council people to join our group, that would sure help out.
Yeah. Anyone interested? We won't put anybody on the spot, but
Oh, sure. You do.
why don't we, yeah, we'll discuss it, see if someone's interested in it, get back to you on that.
Perfect. That
Okay.
sounds real good. Thank you very much.
Well, as long as you're still here, the Casey Jones Trail, I see a lot of local people using it
Yes.
quite a bit. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit on that trail that we do have right now. There's no fee to use it. And it's for non-motorized vehicles,
Right.
if I'm correct on that. Now, there is a fee if you have a horse. The DNR wants to have a
But it's a use permit.
just a use permit, a little ticket that you can get.
Yeah.
I think you can purchase that in Marshall if I'm
Yeah.
at
So-
any DNR office.
Right. And what we're trying to do is actually get a kiosk
That would be great.
at the trailhead, like in Pipestone or in, right now would be Woodstock, where so if a horse riding group would want to use that. Oh, and by the way, there will be a horse event on the trail September 20th. So there is a.
Coming up. But now, you can purchase a fishing license anywhere.
Right.
And why can't the DNR have those permits to use that trail available anywhere? That was always my
You
question.
asked that question.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes sense. Roger, yeah,
That was my question. Through that electronic licensing, why couldn't they do it through that?
that's another, yeah, there's another way to do that too. I don't know why you would have to be in person per se. Because electronically, like getting the insurance lined up, the liability insurance lined up for an event such as we're having here in May, that's all done electronically too. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
if getting back to how many people use that, I didn't say that last year, we had a event here at Pipestone, started in Woodstock, came to Pipestone, and we weren't sure just how many people would show up. So we kind of put the word out, really didn't know what we were doing. Anyway, we had 30 people show up, which doesn't sound like a lot. Half of them were from Sioux Falls. And, but our biggest mistake that we made is we had it on a Sunday. And there's not much open in Pipestone on a Sunday. So,
But yeah, is there any plans to enhance that trailhead at all?
well, yeah, so there, we talked about paving that. There's, they're doing some research on it because they're trying to figure out there's not a real good description on ownership. It may be a sliver that someone else owns, perhaps. And, so they're trying to figure that out so they can get clearance on it.
That was railroad property at one time,
Yes,
and that's always complicated.
yes.
And the DNR has part of it, and yeah, it's a
DNR
complicated
doesn't
area.
own it, the city doesn't own it, Chandler Feed doesn't own it, the railroad doesn't own it.
No,
Yeah,
Just a little piece. No one wants to take ownership of it.
you know, and one thing about the DNR, they can be frustrating to work with, but they're very thorough.
yeah,
And once you, it's even like going through the city of Woodstock to get to the east side of Woodstock. Originally, that railroad property went right along the elevator. Well, that elevator is growing, Chandler Feed owns that. Very active elevator. They really don't want us, well, they didn't say that, no one has said they don't want us there. But we've kind of taken a look at the situation and said, no, we don't want to be driving through there, especially with the grain trucks and what have you. And so we're trying to figure out a route which isn't all that difficult, but to go through Woodstock. But to do that, we have to have it designated, even though Woodstock would own it. But if they ever wanted to put in a trail system that would be 10-foot wide, such as we have on our safe routes to schools, or the trail system we have at Indian Lake, then we would have to be able to have agreements in place that who's going to maintain it, how it's going to be used, and so forth.
well, we should be able to tie into that current county trail with our projected safe routes to school
Yes,
funds that we will be getting this year. And
We are gonna tie into that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it would be nice to be able to tie into that trailhead somehow across Highway 23 onto Fourth, Street
Yes.
Northeast somewhere, or if there's a better route somewhere, because yeah, we got the same thing at this end as Woodstock has, is Chandler Feeds is really
Yeah.
growing and great, more power to them. And yeah, they're going to be a good neighbor, but we don't want to infringe on their business either. So
so
Yeah.
actually, that's why I was suggesting that to their group, is that we'd come to Second Street northwest. Yeah, northwest, then come down Second Street to Second Street southeast. That way, when you would come to that intersection, to get them across the highway versus Fourth coming, doing a left or doing a right, and then you got Highway
They get
23.
railroad
and 75.
tracks.
It's difficult.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and I don't have an easy answer for that.
Well, Second is a good area to cross there.
Yeah.
If there would be some type of crosswalk
Right.
system put in place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we use that butt out system, what do they call that? We had a temporary one,
Yeah, that island.
island, yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
type of thing,
Yeah.
which would be good.
Yeah, I talked to the engineers about that and moving that down to in front of Casey's, where it would make it a little bit more accessible.
Yes,
We'd have to extend some sidewalks there on the west side of the highway. But that kind of just fizzled, that whole project did.
yeah, that, we haven't heard much about
No.
it. Speaking of that, I did talk to the.
That was a state project
Yeah,
too.
state project, MnDOT, the engineers, they're going to, this next summer is overlay with concrete between Pipestone and Truscott,
Yeah,
Highway 268.
right.
And I did talk to them about on the east side of Highway 75 to the trailer court, is trying to get a pathway there. So, because you've got numbers of people that are lower on the income scale that end up and don't have transportation, that they walk, and they're walking on the highway right now. So if we could get the people off of the highway to a separate trail on the right of way. Yeah, they were open to that. I followed up a couple times. They haven't really heard back one way or the other.
Well, there's some planning going on as we
We're meeting
speak on
tomorrow.
that.
Oh, you're meeting tomorrow, good.
Yeah,
Because,
Yeah,
more people we can get off the road, the safer it's going to be.
oh, right.
That's our number one priority out in that area.
Yeah.
Yep. We're meeting tomorrow.
Perfect.
Yep.
Good.
Okay, thank
Well,
you.
thank you for the
Yeah, we
update.
dropped that. Thanks, Myron.
Bring your bike. No horses, your bike.
Right, yeah, better. Okay, engineering, the AWOS bid award. On March 5th, 3 bids were received from the 2025 AWOS replacement project at the airport. The bids were Werner Brothers, Inc., $92,850. NEO Electric Solutions, $110,320. And Vinco, Inc., $118,230. And Siler, I see you're here on Zoom. And Silas, my brother, you're going to give us a presentation on this. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Just here to talk about the bids that were open for the AWOS stands for Automated Weather Observation System. So what it does is for pilots that are landing and taking off at the Pipestone Airport, it provides them real-time weather conditions right there at the airport. So MnDOT currently maintains and operates the existing AWOS that's there at the airport. But unfortunately, it's an older system that MnDOT is unable to find replacement parts for when Rob or Tony Banks are kind of contact that they're having some issues. So instead of trying to piecemeal the existing system, MnDOT is actually furnishing and installing a brand new system and covering 100% of the cost for the city of Pipestone to install a brand new weather station that's going to be located sort of on the west side of the airport with the idea that it's away from any future development so that there isn't any potential to cause any interference with any of the weather sensors that are up on the AWOS. So as Mayor mentioned, we did open bids last. 3 bids for the project. Warner Brothers is a electrical contractor. They actually were the contractor for the electrical project at the airport this last year, so very familiar with the Pipestone Airport. So taking into account the Warner Brothers is low bid, plus there's cost from Sioux Valley Electric to install a new electric service adjacent to the AWOS, which is $7,000, and that just associated with the total project cost of $132,000 will be 100% covered by MnDOT, but we still need city council to authorize the low bid so we can take the next steps. So with that, if there's any questions or comments, I'd be happy to address those from any members of council.
Well, just a comment. I know I've had several people over the last few years ask me about this system because there's a lot of people that are interested in the weather, and this is where they would get that information directly from. It's not only a safety item, it's for the pilots, for the general public too, just to have that information available. So great that we're finally getting it updated.
That's correct. Anybody can call in to get weather information, or you can, there's a frequency which you can also, it's consistently reporting the weather conditions. So there's a interested citizens there that found that out.
And then this is actually where the local television stations would get their information that they put on their weather reports for the
That's
city of
interesting to
Pipestone.
know.
Yeah, so the city of Pipestone's been blank for a few years. So, good, all right. So any other questions, discussion?
I just want to make sure that when you make the motion that it's contingent upon issuance of a state grant.
Okay,
Make sure that,
so I'd entertain a motion to award the AWOS bid contingent on a state grant.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion on the floor and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no, and motion carries. Well, thank you, Silas. Good information. Appreciate you doing
Thank
this.
you.
thank you, Silas.
Yep, and I'll stay on the line for the other item as well, Jen.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
New business, resolution 2025-21. On the 19th of February, the City Board of Adjustments and Appeals had a variance public hearing on the application of Chandler Fleet Company Constructa. 7 new accessory structures that would exceed the maximum 15-foot height limitations, and that's what we have in city ordinance, a 15-foot height limitation. And so they were asking for a variance. The Adjustment and Board of Appeals did recommend approving that variance. So I'd entertain a motion at this time.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2025-21.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say no, and motion carries. Thank you. Resolution 2025-22, this resolution approves plans and specs and orders advertisements for the bids on the proposed 80-foot by 80-foot hangar at the airport. And Silas, I wonder if you have a little information on this also.
Yeah, certainly. So members of council, in November of 2021, Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, which provide a significant amount of infrastructure funding to all communities across the country. Well, associated with that law was 25 billion of funding appropriated for federal system airports throughout the country. So Pipestone, being an airport that receives federal funds, was also received bipartisan infrastructure law funds. So between the years of 2022 through 2026, Pipestone received an appropriation of bill funds in addition to the annual $150,000 entitlement funds that Pipestone receives. So with these additional bill funds, it meant that Pipestone could look to complete a larger capital project because it's one-off source of funding that anticipated to remain in effect after next year. So in discussions with the airport commission, Deb, talking to the local airport manager, what they looked like they needed was another aircraft storage hangar to expand the business at the airport. Talking to Rob and Dykstra, there's a lot of activity occurring there at the airport. And them only having one hangar kind of limits their operation. So what the city decided to do was to bank the 22, 23, and 24 appropriations of this to kind of move forward with the 2025 project of constructing an 80 by 80 hangar. So what this project will do is kind of on the north side, east side, of construct an 80 by 80 aircraft storage. It'll be a heated hangar that'll kind of allow the business to expand, but also will bring more aircraft over to the Pipestone Airport, which the city will also benefit by selling more fuel and things of that nature. So I think it was November of last year, there was a design proposal that was put forward to the city council, and now I'm coming back to discuss the bids. Before I kind of talk about the schedule, I also wanted to talk about the estimated cost of the project and funding that's available. So my current cost estimate for the project is, construction and engineering and administration is $951,000. But of that, 95% of this project will be FAA funded. The state is contributing 2.5%. The local share will be 2.5%. So an estimated $20,275 for the local share of the project. After construction, there'll be a lease agreement that's established, with the hangar. But this project long term is likely also to generate additional revenue for the city by moving forward with construction. So kind of before I discuss this, I just wanted to pause there. Members of council, any questions?
Any questions or comments from the council? I mean, it's, how can you go wrong with a 97.5% funded project? So we're getting a lot of bang for our buck here on this, and certainly something that's needed out there.
And this was put in the budget for to be done this year. So
Good.
the money is in the
Okay.
budget.
Good.
That's a good point, Mayor, and that was kind of some of the calculus that Deb had thought about, saving the money to gear up for one large project to keep the local share at a minimum. So what we're looking for a city council is a kind of approval to put the plans and the specifications out for bid. And our plan is to open bids at the April 21st city council meeting at 6:30 p.m.
I'll go ahead and move resolution 2025-22.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say no, and motion carries. And thank you again. Appreciate the input.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Silas.
And Silas is with Bolton and Mink, our city engineering firm. Sorry, I didn't introduce him to begin with. Okay, resolution 2025-23. On January 21st, the city council adopted a resolution to order the pavement improvement to the industrial road. And on February 18th, the city council held a public hearing to hear comments on the proposed improvement and assessments of the project. This resolution, if approved, will order the improvement of industrial road and the preparation of plans. And this is something that's been talked about for several years. And we had some good comments from our public hearing on it. And the utility committee is recommending to move ahead with it based on the curb and gutter was put in on that stretch. How long of a stretch is it? It's only like about a block and a half, isn't it, or 2 blocks? When you try to put it into layman's terms on how long it is. It's not a very,
It ain't very long.
it's not a very big project.
500,
The curb and gutter and the street surface, the gravel
Yeah.
and all the drainage was put in 2009.
Right, and I would say like 600 feet
Yeah.
or so,
between
roughly, but
700 feet.
yeah, so we've had curb and gutter and storm sewer there, storm wastewater put in since 2009. And it's really not a good plan to have your storm drains with gravel because they've been plugging up, and Joel said it's been quite an ordeal to keep them open. And that is used by a lot of truck traffic. I did talk with a couple of the business owners out there. And so I think we're at a point where, you keep kicking this down the road, kicking the can down the road, it doesn't get any cheaper. And we have funding available. I'm recommending that we move ahead with it and finish that project.
I'll move resolution 2025-23.
Second,
So it's been moved and seconded for resolution 2025-23. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no, and motion carries. Next up is the Carnegie Library scope of work proposal, and this is something we talked about at our annual meeting in February. And we'd like to get the proposed costs of renovating that building updated. The proposal that we have now is from 2019. Well, we know what happened after 2019. In 2020, COVID hit and prices just skyrocketed with construction material and everything else. And so we're estimating, at least 25% more than the original 2019 proposal. But then again, there could have been further damage in the last 5 years to 6 years. And so we need to get that updated, and not only so that we know what we're talking about, we have current numbers in for grant proposals. And so this would be the first step to get this ball rolling again, because nothing's happened since 2017 when this project first was looked at. And we need to address that building. So any questions on the proposal here? The city's Heritage Preservation Commission, there's also a letter that they're forwarding recommendation to renovate that building too. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the work required to give us an estimate on the proposed repairs of that building.
This is just to get the estimate, correct? This is not moving forward with work. This is just.
This is
getting
just to get the conditions assessment, so we know
This is-
exactly what it's gonna cost to fix the whole.
and this is
Like what we had
outside.
What we had discussed at our work session was that we need to start from basically square one at this point because our information is too old and out of date to move ahead at this time. We did receive a grant and we do have a matching fund grant available for the east side wall that has collapsed a little bit. And that would be the first step. However, it doesn't make much sense to go ahead and repair that wall if you're not going to repair the roof. And we got to get that roof repaired in order to save that building. And so that would be the next step, and that's why we've got to determine what that cost would be, how much damage is there, and then apply for the grants and the funding to try to renovate that building.
At an earlier meeting, the council did request that a full assessment of the whole full exterior of the building be done, and that's what this bid
Moves
is
forward.
for, this, yep,
Okay.
to move forward, yep.
And that wall, that east wall, if you think back on it now, it's an area probably 15 feet by 15 feet where that outer fascia came off. Well, nothing else has changed in over 5 years. And so it's been exposed to the elements over 5 years, and it hasn't gotten any worse on that side. To the layman's eye, anyway. And that's why we need to have professionals look at it and see just exactly what we're up against. I'm surprised that the rest of that wall hasn't collapsed. So that's telling me that it's probably in pretty decent shape to be able to be in the left like it was for the last 5 years and not deteriorate any further. But I can't say that without professionals actually looking at it, so that's the hope here. So I would move that we move ahead with the assessment. And that cost was about $42,400. $42,400.
And then we'd be getting a bid from somebody local for everything on the interior then? Because this is just exterior.
This is just
This-
the exterior, that's,
But I'm saying to get a total cost of what this is gonna cost before the decision is made on what we're gonna do or whether we're moving forward or not moving forward,
Well,
we need all these bids or these figures to know.
yeah. Well, however it ends up playing out, and this is my take on it, Scott. If we're gonna renovate the building and keep it for a city building, or if we're going to try to sell that building, we certainly can't sell it in the condition that it's in. And, or are we going to put money into taking the building down? Whichever way you go, there's going to be a cost. And that's the decision that the council needs to make. There is no good way out of this. That building is going to cost the city some money. And if we can utilize grants, that's probably our best way to go at this point. And we do have a grant in place. We just need to make sure that we have our ducks in a row, that we have the information we need to continue the grants. And even if we're gonna fix that wall and then turn around and try to sell it, if that's what the council wishes to do at a later date, the interior would be the last step in this process because it's going to be a process that's going to be done in stages. There's no way that the city of Pipestone can come up with all the funds to renovate that building and put it to use right now. It's just not feasible. And so the only way we can save that building is in stages. And to get that wall, which is a high priority, and to get that roof, which is the next priority, in shape. No matter what you decide to do with the building after that, Those are two things you have to do, in my eyes.
Well, I think what Scott's point is, we do that work, and then what's it gonna cost us the rest of the way? I mean, we kinda like to know what's
Well,
gonna
The total
cost us
cost.
by the
That-
time we're,
Damage inside too.
yeah,
We
I
we
mean,
need to, as a council, you need to go inside and. look
otherwise you're
into
kinda
this.
like giving a blank check, and it's like we have no idea what this is
Yeah.
what we're gonna run into here.
Yeah,
So if you just have the outside and the roof, and then you have no idea what the inside's gonna cost, you know, when you spend the money on the outside, then you're into it then.
well, if you get it weather tight, then it's not gonna deteriorate any further.
Well, I mean,
And then if you decide to sell the building, at least it's a usable building at that point for somebody, if in fact that's what the city wanted to do. But whichever way you decide in the future, and, these are things that need to be done at this point. Otherwise, you might as well just plan on demolition.
is that now that grants that cover that 42,000 or part of that, that's
No.
separate.
That's, no,
The grant just covers
east
the
wall.
matching. Is that what you said? Matching fund for the
Yep.
east wall, but not the roof.
Right.
Right.
Not the roof, east wall only.
I thought that the report we had though said that the roof needs to be addressed before you can fix the wall.
The roof really needs to be addressed. The state hasn't even signed off on the agreement, and they won't sign off on it until another scope of work was done, which, that's why we tabled that resolution. And so the council wanted a full assessment of the whole entire outside of the building done, which that's what this is gonna do. So what you could do is move forward with this conditions assessment and get the whole outside done. And as they're working on that, Travis is on vacation. When he comes back next week, the council, we could meet with Travis and just do a walkthrough of the inside of the building. You need to see the inside.
To determine what you want to do with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
But now also, the state said that if you do accept that grant and move ahead with fixing that east wall, they would like to see that roof repaired because it has to be done. But they're also saying a temporary repair to make it weather tight would suffice at this time for that grant. I mean, it would make sense to do the whole thing and do it right, but a temporary repair is also acceptable at this time to get it
Is that-
weather tight.
I didn't hear, I don't remember seeing that.
Well, I
part.
called them and talked to them
Oh.
directly on that, and they felt that would suffice. You know, there's always gonna be hiccups down the road when you're dealing with an older building like that. And, the council needs to make a decision on it. You just can't let it sit for like it did since 2017 and do nothing. That didn't make any sense at all, because there was money put into that building and then it just sat there. And, that's, to me, that's not being a good steward of public property. That's just ignoring the problem. Well, when you ignore it, it doesn't go away. It's only gonna get worse. So a decision needs to be made. So we have a motion on the floor to move ahead with the proposed assessment of the building. And we need a second to proceed.
I'll second that. We want to know what this is gonna cost, so.
Right.
Until we,
So now we have a motion and a second, and now we can open it up to discussion. And yeah, some of the comments that have come up are all good comments. But the bottom line is, you just can't ignore this any longer. You have to decide to do something. Whatever the wishes of the council is in the long run, will be determined by the costs, I'm sure. And Scott has good comments that, yeah, we need to know what those costs are. Correct. We need to know them before we can make a decision.
Yeah, I think we need to know the total cost, inside, outside, everything on that building before we can agree to either renovate or to bring it to the people for a vote, because if it's too high priced, you can't just say, yeah, we're gonna fix that up and it's umpteen $1 million.
Yeah, well, you have to apply for grants, and like I said, it's gonna be in stages, and it might be quite a few years down the road before it's completed or before you get the grants, but if you do nothing, we know what the results will be. We're gonna have a pile of rubble eventually, sitting right there in the middle of our community. And that's a pretty historical building, and it's a building that's asked about a lot, according to the museum, Susan Hodgkins, and also according to the chamber, Erica Volkers, that building is asked about more than any other historical building in the city limits.
I guess, and another part of the point we need to get across is, we've also got a water tower sitting in the same condition. And the same decision has to be made there too.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot of issues with the city of Pipestone that's gonna, you can tie everything in, but let's just stay on track with what we're talking about right now, and that's Carnegie Library. Because we're gonna have additional expenses with streets, we're gonna have additional expenses with other city buildings. It never stops, that's for sure.
I realize that.
But yeah, I would like the council to tour the building and come up with some ideas on how to deal with this building versus just ignoring it like what's happened in the past. So we had a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Questions, comments? Because we'll have more questions as time goes on, I'm sure. This is just the start of it. So all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say no. And motion carries.
When can we tour this building as a whole?
You wanna tour with the engineer?
We can, yeah.
Okay,
But I think everybody needs to walk around this building, everybody needs to go through this building.
Yep.
And get a real handle on what we're talking about here.
I
Yeah,
just need 3 days posting a special meeting is all. So.
I've got
Travis will be back.
comments in favor of it and comments against it. And, yeah, people drive by and, you can't access a building by just simply driving by. But you need to know the whole history of it, what's been put into that building in the past. And, like for the example, the north wall, that was repaired. And the common person looks at it and says, well, what do you mean? That thing looks a little wavy. Well, it was repaired that way because that's how you repair historical buildings. And there's some windows that need to be updated. There's some doors, there's the front steps. I mean, it's gonna take a lot to renovate it, that's for sure.
Correct.
But according to Susan, there's a lot of money out there at the state level for grants for historical buildings. And we are a historical community. And it would be a shame to lose that just by neglect or not making a decision. So it's time to move ahead and make decisions, that's for sure. So glad that the council went ahead and at least we're taking the first step here. Go from there. Okay, so HRA appointments is next on the agenda. And the last city council meeting we had on March 3rd, our HRA Executive Director Tammy Manderscheid spoke with her concerns pertaining to the HR Board of Commissioners and appointments. And we've done some research on her concerns and also on the state statute. And Jason, you have some information that you'd like to share with the council at this time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
You should have a memo in your packet that kind of lays out, kind of addresses some of the concerns that were brought by Ms. Manishan at the previous meeting. It specifically, the statute specifically defines the area of operation for the HRA territorial boundaries of the city. And there seemed to be a belief that if they're operating outside of that area, then that's the area of operation. But we have records that show, and Ms. Vandersheim presented some things that show those operations were approved by the city council. It's very similar to, joint powers agreements. Cities have the authority to, if they to provide outside of the boundaries of the city. But that doesn't change the statutory or the foundation requirements. For example, who can sit on the city, because you have a fire contract with a township, that doesn't, the area township, city council member township, is just one example of that. And I think that demonstrates that specifically resolutions from various entities approving operations outside of the city, demonstrate further that I was aware of what the jurisdictional boundaries are. But the statute is very clear, and the definition is very clear on what the territorial boundary and what the area of operation is. So just to that piece of it. But then what I also indicated in my memo doesn't mean you have to immediately stop everything that's going on outside of those boundaries. If those boundaries, the second A stuff or other things were approved, and there's other kind of agreements in place, you can keep doing that. It doesn't change the area of operation as that's defined by the statute. But you can keep doing that as long as they're offered. So that's kind of the kind of short version of what's in the memo. It's not a very long memo, but just really kind of address those key points because those are very clear in the statute. So I believe the second is managed. Heard anything back from her or any of the other members who were deemed to be not qualified to serve as board members on the HRA. So in my opinion, the statutes are very clear, and the actions of the city council, the council was authorized. But as I indicated, if there are things that are approved outside of it, similar to a JPA, I probably would maybe put something more, make it clearer, something in writing as far as some of these agreements, and maybe we can do that. I can work with Ms. Manishay to do some of that stuff to make it clearer and make sure everything's, okay with the city council. So that we can keep doing those operations that are outside of the city. So that's kind of what's in my memo and the way I look at going forward.
Okay, well, thank you, Jason. And I did have a conversation with Tammy recently, our HRA executive director, and the intent of the HRA was not to violate the state statute. I think they were operating as they had for quite some time without the proper information. And now we have that proper information to them, and they certainly want to follow the state statutes also. And the council, we cannot deviate from the state statute. We need to follow that. The days of bending the rules or ignoring the rules are long over with at the city council level here. And so it was unfortunate that we had three very dedicated individuals that had served on that commission that were no longer eligible. And that was the outcome of that investigation. But again, it wasn't their fault at all. And I would hope that they would continue to serve the city of Pipestone and also in their capacities with their current occupations and volunteer in other areas to assist the community where they can. Tammy did have 3 people that she recommended for my appointments to the HRA board that do meet the requirements of the state statute, that are residents of the city of Pipestone. And those people would be Travis Lund, Jada Schuman, and Daniel Gordado. And I am recommending to the city council at this time to appoint those 3 people to the HRA Board of Commissioners. Section 8 housing, like you're talking to, Jason, that's something that will be discussed at later HRA meetings in regards to how they want to handle that. Yes, there was permission to use HRA funds and Section 8 housing outside of the city limits in Pipestone County, but they've since migrated to Rock County, and there's nothing there in Rock County as far as a joint powers agreement or approval from the city council. But long story short, they want to move the Section 8 information to Mankato and allow Mankato HRA, a multi-county, multi-jurisdictional HRA, to work with those Section 8 housings. We would still have it available here in Pipestone for people to apply for. However, the Mankato HRA would maintain it, and I'm assuming do the yearly investigations on the property and collect the funding for that and distribute the vouchers for that to the landlord. So the process will continue, and we have a great HRA in the city of Pipestone. And when people look at Nokomis Apartments, they think, well, that's HRA. Well, that's one portion of it. And there's many areas for the HRA that they can be assisting the city of Pipestone. In fact, the original resolution for the HRA was to eliminate blight. And I thought that wording from 1966 was still very much needed, because how often have we talked about eliminating blight and dealing with blight on this council in just recent years or months? We still are. And so that's an area that can help us in the long run with that scenario too. So entertain a motion to approve those 3 people to the HRA board and to move ahead with their important work.
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions, comments, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no, and motion carries. Item F is the solar energy, how do you pronounce that? ESTOPPEL certificate. Estoppel certificate. And Deb, I'll let you explain what exactly that means, because I don't have a clue.
And I'm gonna let Jason talk about it.
Okay,
because he's
all
the
right, well, let's
attorney.
turn that over to Jason then, yeah. Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the company that had the original lease, is, I think they're being purchased by another company. There are in the lease that allow it to be assigned. And what an estoppel certificate is basically the buyer, the person who's taking on that lease wants confirmation from the city that basically everything's kosher. There's no lawsuits, there's no overdue rent, there's no other issues with the lease. They basically, they don't want to step into something that is going to be an immediate problem. That's all of the certificate is. It's just a certification from the city that basically says good on the lease, so that the buyer doesn't have concerns. The buyer, lessee concerns going into the lease. And I think staff has reviewed it. There are always kind of a long list of questions, like staff, and they're comfortable kind of affirming statements. So I review our recommending approval of the stop certificate.
Okay. And is this for the current solar farm that we have now?
Yep, on North
Not a
Highway.
proposed
Right,
solar farm? So,
correct.
yeah, okay.
So the new leasee would meet the requirements or honor the contract that was in effect with the previous
Correct.
solar
Okay.
farm.
And they just want to make sure that we've kept up, they've kept where everything's good, and it is.
Okay.
Yep, we've always kept up and paying, they've been very good to us, and, yep.
All right.
Well, I'd entertain a motion to follow the city attorney's advice and approve the estoppel certificate.
So move.
I'll second that.
That's been moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. All opposed, say no, and motion carries. The alcohol vendor approval for Hiawatha Lodge event, and that's been an area that we've had some changes come up where it's a little bit difficult to find somebody that can have a caterer's license to operate there and provide the services that people want when they rent the Hiawatha Lodge. And so we do have Utopia Paradise LLC is interested in being the liquor license vendor for March 18th, 2025, and April 12th, 2025. And that needs council approval. As an individual, it's according to state statute, we can do it this way also versus having someone on contract. And so I think in the long run, this might work out better and leave it up to the people that are renting it to come up with a vendor, and if they meet our approval, we can go from there. So I'd recommend a motion then to approve Utopia Paradise LLC for March 18th and April 12th of this year as the liquor license vendor for the Hiawatha Lodge.
So move.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other questions or comments? And I explained that about correctly, didn't I, Deb, or?
Correct.
Okay,
I
all
would
right.
like to add that Stephanie is gonna send a letter to be the Pipestone Country Club. Anybody that has a on sale intoxicating liquor license with the city of Pipestone, see if they want to be put onto the list. I know the Legion is interested as well, and the bowling alley, Bullmore Lanes is interested. And then we would just give them that list, and of course, it would have to come to the council every time, but
Now, where is Utopia Paradise LLC located?
Stonehouse,
Oh, that is the
yeah,
Stone.
they're a Utopian
That's
Paradise,
just the-
yeah,
Okay,
that's their business name.
okay, all right, good. Okay. Any other questions? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you. Fire service agreement. Pipestone Fire Department recently received a request from the Holland Fire Department to assist in 2 practice grassland burns. And City Attorney Hill has recommended that the city enter into a fire service agreement to ensure protection for both agencies. And this agreement will terminate following the completion of the grass burns. And so again, Jason, this is an area that we've certainly participated in the past. And we certainly are appreciative of your recommendations here because we want to make sure that we have limited liability on that. And that's why we got you on board at these meetings. So thank you for this information. And any questions or comments there? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agreement.
So move.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any other comments?
I could make a
Go
little
ahead,
bit of from, I talked with Mike a little bit about this today, and what it is Muller Brothers leases some acres from Lincoln Pipestone Rural Water, some CRP acres, and every 5 years you either have to till it or burn it, and they chose to burn it this year. And so Holland is gonna be, has requested the assistance of the Pipestone Fire Department for some equipment, firefighters, and Jason was so nice to put together this services agreement, just to give you a little background on what is actually going to be the burn
Well,
entails.
and it's also good training and practice for both
Exactly.
departments, so.
Yep.
And hopefully they're gonna wait a while and do it when conditions are a little better than they have been recently.
Yeah, there's a certain window when you can do it. You had to wait a couple weeks.
Okay.
And then it has to be done before pheasant nesting.
Oh,
I
sure.
think it's like a 5-week window.
Okay. So all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say no, and motion carries. Next up is closing comments. And Danielle, I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, just a quick update from the Plum Creek Library System. They got a new courier van. The last one logged over 200,000 miles. It was time to retire, so she's a brand new rig. She services Cottonwood, Jackson, Lincoln, Lyon, Murray, Nobles, Pipestone, Redwood, and Rock counties. So I encourage those that have that coming to their communities to utilize it. The Plum Creek Library System is one of 12 library systems throughout the state. So it allows us to, no matter where you're at in the state, you're able to borrow things from any library across the state. So
Yeah.
great brand new thing for very much needed.
We are so fortunate to be affiliated with them and, 28 million items are available to the public just because we're part of the Plum Creek Library System that people can have access to and check out and use. And certainly for the schools and the community, a great system that we're involved with. So I'm glad to see they're updating. And the new van will be named Vincent Van Gogh. And we've got some pictures here. It looks like it's been well decorated and may even have a Van Gogh painted on the side there with a little bit the way it looks. So you'll see it around town. Follow it to the library. Okay, I've got one other comment for closing comments that I wanted to address. And we had some citizens report of cards left on their door and signs left on their door for commercial and residential tree and landscaping business. And that business is not listed with the city of Pipestone. It is not licensed. And it's actually canvassing when they're doing that with it's a solicitation, and that's against city ordinance. And so it's also a trespassing. And so if there's other people that have come across these items at their home, or if someone's knocking on their door and trying to solicit this, please contact the city. They can contact law enforcement and we can address this issue. I don't know if it's legitimate or not, but they are not registered with the city of Pipestone, and that's part of our registration is to make sure that we do have legitimate businesses that are offering that service. So any other closing comments? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed saying no. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.